Sheriff David Clarke, good morning to you. How are you? And first of all, the president will be upset if we didn't say to you, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Appreciate it. So, Sheriff, what do you make of the fact that that the president has been invited? He's going to speak at the Civil Rights Museum, John, and we've got very famous civil rights, what would you call them? Icons that are decided not to be there. What do you think of that boycott?
John who?
John Lewis. John Lewis, he was bloodied on the Selma Bridge, Sheriff, when he was trying to protest voting rights and organizing sit-ins and a variety of things on behalf of the black community.
Are you going to let me talk, Ebony?
Oh, well,
John
sorry,
Lewis,
I was just addressing your question.
You
asked who, so I was telling you a bit about John Lewis.
You didn't let me finish. John Lewis has become one of the most irrelevant members of Congress. Have you taken, Ebony, a look at his congressional district, the high poverty, the high unemployment, the crime that goes on, the failing schools that have gone on in his district under his leadership? Look, nobody cares what John Lewis is doing. He's been reduced to being a caricature in that he has to pull a political stunt like this. He can't even honor the Civil Rights Museum opening. He has to pull a political stunt to get news coverage. That's how bad this is. Look, Donald Trump realizes that he's the president of all people. He also realizes that actions speak louder than words. So his showing up, I think, signals, and what these obstinate people are afraid of, that President Donald Trump is winning hearts and minds quietly and slowly throughout black America, as they are willing to give him a chance, as he asked during the campaign. So I think the event will be better off without those people there.
Well, Sheriff, let me say this to you. For you to say that nobody cares about John Lewis is inaccurate, because I assure you that there are many people across this country that absolutely do care about him. As for your commentary on his political record as a congressman, I'm actually not even addressing that part, because this museum opening is about the civil rights of American citizens. So when it comes to his record on that, Sheriff Clarke, I think it's pretty undisputed.
All right, well, let me say this to you, Ebony, that if you went into any black high school and probably most black colleges in America and talked to black people under the age of 35, they would not know who John Lewis is. I'm not trying to diminish what he did, all right, but I'm talking about today. I'm talking about today. What he did was a political stunt. I think it's a slap in the face. And keep this in mind, too, Ebony, that if it weren't for the Republicans in Congress in the 1960s, there would be no Civil Rights Act. There would be no Voting Rights Act, as Lyndon Johnson, the Democrat president, had to use Republicans. He had to rally Republicans in order to pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, because the Democrats in Congress opposed it.
Right. No, here's the thing, though, Sheriff. I appreciate that history lesson, but as somebody that holds a degree on the subject, I really don't need you to update me on who was required for Lyndon B. Johnson to pass the Civil Rights Act.
You've forgotten some of your history.
No, absolutely, I don't. No, absolutely didn't. And I actually don't have anything against Republicans. It's amazing.
Would we not be talking?
Republicans officially passed their tax cut plan, and predictably, Democrats and the media did their best to paint the bill as a disaster for America. Take a look at this.
In this case, it seems like this is the wrong tax cut at the wrong time, directed at the wrong people.
It was a classic bait and switch. They dangled out there for the middle class. They're expecting a tax cut. And what it's really doing is helping the corporate special interests as well as the wealthiest in this nation.
I'll ask you plainly, are you living in a fantasy world?
Now, we know they're popping champagne down Pennsylvania Avenue. There are only two places where America's popping champagne: the White House and the corporate boardrooms, including Trump Tower. Otherwise, Americans have a lot to regret.
After all the president's promises, after all Republicans brazenly transparent misrepresentations to the American people, the true face of what Republicans stand for has been revealed.
Well, it is a victory for billionaires like Donald Trump. It's a victory for wealthy campaign contributors like the Koch brothers. But this is a disaster for the American people.
In response to the bill's critics, President Trump tweeted, quote, "The tax cuts are so large and so meaningful, and yet the fake news is working overtime to follow the lead of their friends, the defeated Dems, and only demean. This is truly a case," he continues, "where the results will speak for themselves starting very soon." Jobs, jobs, jobs. And joining us now with a reaction is author and host of The Dana Show on Radio America, Dana Lash, America First Action spokesman and senior advisor, former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke, and incoming Heritage Foundation president Kay Cole James. All right, good evening. I have to tell you, and I'll start with you, Dana. I mean, Armageddon, the wrong bill at the wrong time. Are you living in a fantasy world? I mean, don't they totally lose their credibility?
They do lose their credibility. Imagine they wanted to increase and keep high Americans' taxes for Christmas. Not a single Democrat was supporting this bill. You're not going to be able, they cannot lie to the American people when the American people see that they are keeping more of their money, because these are going to kick in really quick. You can't lie to people about what's in their bank account. You can't lie to them about what's written on their checks. They're going to immediately start feeling relief, as we've seen from AT&T, as we've seen from Boeing. This is our money. And corporations, and by the way, Chuck Schumer was attacking AT&T, claiming in video that AT&T was going to use this to enrich themselves. And what does AT&T do? They announced that they're investing in their employees and their community, as is Boeing and other companies, because this is how economics work. This is how math works. They're on the wrong side of the history on this. And I have to say, I think today, so far, has been the greatest day of President Trump's administration. This was a great day, a historic day.
All right, and I'll go to you, David Clarke. I mean, the whole idea that Dana leaves us with is the repeal of the individual mandate in Obamacare.
This whole thing is fantastic. Look, tax cuts drive Democrats and liberals crazy. They are the tax and spend party, and they've been that for a long time. President Donald Trump knows that this economy, in order to get it kick-started, needed fuel. That fuel was this tax reform and tax cut bill. There's been nothing but good signs out of this economy since he's taken office in January. Under Obama, we had nothing but stifling taxes, stifling job creation, loss of jobs, companies moving overseas. His policies had the effect of having its boot on the neck of the American company. Well, that boot has been taken off today with this historic tax reform bill.
And Kay, I'll go to you. I mean, you know, incoming president to the Heritage Foundation. I mean, how do you view this passage?
Well, first of all, you know, it's an exciting Christmas for me, coming to the Heritage Foundation, and then the president and the speaker and the majority leader delivering a present like this for all Americans. You know, facts are stubborn things, and no matter what the Democrats say today, the reality is the American people are going to see those tax cuts in their wallets. They're going to see them in their paychecks. They're going to see it in the jobs that are being created. And no matter what they say, no matter how they try to demagogue this issue, the reality is Americans got a wonderful gift today. And, you know, I don't think that the champagne is being popped in corporate boardrooms, but the reality is there are some American people sitting around their kitchen tables this evening that have a lot to be grateful for to this president and to this Congress.
And Dana, clearly, I mean, this is a great time of year. So when I hear the Democrats saying it's the wrong bill at the wrong time, I mean, first of all, this is the best time to do it. That's just my take on the holidays. But more than that, Dana, if they're really that angry about it, this continuing resolution that's coming up, you know, the government shutdown on Friday, I mean, they would shut the government down. I mean, but they're not going to oppose this, are they? The continuing resolution.
And they shouldn't be. They shouldn't. They shouldn't oppose this, and they shouldn't try to shut government down because they're having a tantrum over Americans getting to keep more of their own money. You know, according to Democrats, there's no good time to allow Americans to keep more of their own money. and Judge Janina, I want to add as well, for individuals that are so upset that the government is allowing them to keep more of their own money, this is just the minimum. I want to remind people, they are free. We live in America. God bless the USA. They're free to pay more to the government if they so choose. They can write a check to the Treasury and they can pay more. They don't have to listen to the government's minimum suggestions in terms of tax brackets. They can pay 50%, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% of their income to the government. That's their choice.
But David Clarke, what do you say to those who say that it has a negative impact on the debt, that it's going to increase the debt?
Well, you know, that stuff remains to be seen. But here's the issue for the president today. He has to get this economy going. He's already done that. But this thing is going to pick up steam. And if the Democrats don't get out of the way, they're going to get run over by this robust economy. They're trying to throw a wet blanket over this historic occasion, but it's not going to work. The American people sent Donald Trump. Like I said, the only person in Washington, D.C. who's actually created jobs has been Donald Trump. He understands the role that the politics can play in either stifling the economy or giving it juice. So this is good. And as soon as this thing really takes off, I think it's a good night for the Democrats.
All right. And, you know, I'm going to ask that we listen to some sound from Representative Jackie Speier, and then I'll go to you.
This is the ultimate bad Christmas Carol story. This may be the most shameful day in the history of Congress. Wealthy Americans, big fat Christmas present for you. Tiny Tim, we're taking your crutch away from you and all the other kids in this country, and we're putting a lump of coal into your Christmas stocking. It's shameful. It should not be happening in this country of so much wealth and so much greatness that we would allow these children and the 370,000 pregnant women in this country that also rely on CHIP, that we would shut them out of health care.
Kay, this is the same congresswoman who said last week that the president was going to fire Mueller, that when everybody went on vacation, he was going to do it. And she had it on, you know, a good reason that this is what was going to happen. She was clearly wrong. The president came out a minute later and said not. But Kay, what do you think?
That is just absolutely shameful. I mean, to use Tiny Tim, come on now, and his crutch. The reality is the American people are not going to fall for that. Democrats have got to come up with something better than that. You know, we hold at the Heritage Foundation, we hold everybody's feet to the fire.
Yes,
Democrats and Republicans. We really, really do. And when Republicans are wrong, we'll call them on it. We're just getting started, by the way, on tax reform. There's much more that we can do. But going before the American people with Tiny Tim at Christmas, come on now.
Well, you know what? And this is the biggest tax reform, certainly in 31 years. But I think it's all going to bode well for Americans. I want to thank you, Dana, David, and Kay, for being with us tonight.